I welcome you all once again on this FDP related to the contemporary international economics and the geopolitical alignments. So far as we have done till yesterday, how the US tariff policy has been evolving, and moreover, we were about to discuss today related to the Middle East crisis and the Iran-Israel warfare which is going on, how it will be creating attention towards towards the economic aspect, also towards the trade, also towards the oil crisis and all those things. So the basic and the most important thing and the most sensitive aspect of this Middle East tension which is going on will be probably on the oil exports, and it will actually affecting the uh, supply chain disruption in the uh, oil exports and imports as well. So today we will start with the Iran, Israel, and Middle East tension, the geopolitical hotspots, the sanctions, and the strategic choke points. So we will focus on the geopolitical hotspots, the sanctions which has been kept on Iran, and how it has been affecting the economies, specifically Iran economy. And then we will go about how the petrodollar fragility is going to affect the world. And as someone within the FDP, I think, asked about, so to explain the de-dollarization. So today I'll discuss something about de-dollarization also, and we'll continue with that. So I welcome you once again. So in the last yesterday, when we were discussing about the US tariff policy, so I think we were done about almost each and every aspect of that. But if something would have left up on, so I don't think is something more was there to discuss for. But yes, there is no end for the discussion on how the tariff policy will be affecting the India's economy also. But yes, do we do have so many ways and means through which we can try to at least resist that effect, or we could just try to make people make the economy and make our industrial sector quite resilient to those effects which we are facing right now. And in that line, the GST reform would be, I hope, would be making some better intervention, in a sense that our exports will not get so much affected. So there will be a policy dilemma sometimes, because in order to increase the trade, either we go by the subsidization or we go by the devaluation of a currency. Some or the other way we have to check. Now the issue is that if a country imposes tariff on India, so how we can make our products more competitive, how we can make a product which is quite demanded in a manner which has its brand value in a manner such that its demand remains almost inelastic. So as you can see in the yesterday when we were discussing about the case of pharmaceuticals. So in case of pharmaceuticals, there is zero tariff. Why? Because pharmaceuticals becomes the part of a necessity good, and even if tariff will be imposed over the exports of pharmaceuticals, then we can see that there will be no big change in demand. So as far as many sectors are concerned, so the safest sector right now will be the pharmaceuticals, that will not get affected by this tariff policy. They're facing 0% rate of tariff. But yes, we can go by a trade agreement with US, because there are some or the other ways which we have to compensate such loss which have been made. So this was all about the US tariff policy. It took 2 days for me to complete that. And today I'll be taking the Iran Israel Middle East tension that has been going on. It's a Middle East crisis, and how India has been playing a role in this crisis, and how India will be affected for that. That will also be discussed in a small bits. And secondly, the IMEC, that India Middle East East Asian European corridor, that will be that probably works as a alter to the China's OBOR policy. So we'll see how it will be uh, pivotal and how it will be instrumental in India's favor, or the case of the oil imports and all those things which are going on. So when we talk about the Iran-Israel crisis, so there, what the point of focus and the point of study for us will be these five aspects. Number one, the conflict, how it started, what went wrong, how it had been how it been initiated, and initially started with the small confrontations, and then the June 2025 became a warfare that marked a shift from the proxy war to a direct confrontation. So earlier it was not one on one, now it's one on one war. Second point we'll be discussing today will be the strategic checkpoint. That is, what are the strategic choke points from where the sensitive part, or the points where the economies will be affected. So the Strait of Hormuz that handles the 24% of global oil and 33% of LNG exports. So this is the biggest choke point, and this is the, I would say, the central key determining strategic place where the turn could have take place, or not about the war, but on the economic front. So on an economic front, the strategic choke point will be the Strait of Hormuz. So we're going to discuss about how it will be affecting and how it will be changing the things. Third, we will be discussing about the impacts of the sanctions, that how Iran remains heavily sanctioned with about $100 billion of exports revenue, because it has been sanctioned uh, dom- uh, initially and prominently by US, and that has led to a big loss for Iranian economy in case of exports, or specifically in case of trade sector. Fourth, we'll be discussing about the petrodollar fragility, and in this we will be trying to understand how the US dollar dominance is now gonna face a backlash, and there are some alternative payment systems which are developing, and that is leading to the de-dollarization, as someone has suggested. We will discuss more about that in that case. And at last, we will be discussing about how the regional powers are shifting within the Middle East, how Saudi Arabia, UAE are benefiting from this weakened Iranian influence on the Middle East areas. So how we will discussing on these five aspects, starting from the direct conflict, how it has been beginning. So we'll go forward. So I think all of you can follow up with me. And if at any moment and at point of time you feel like that you are not getting what I mean to convey, or you are not being able to follow up, just put a text on the chat box. Or if in case, you can also unmute and tell me if you want to say something. So we go forward. So first we discuss about how this proxy war has now converted into a direct confrontation. So we will not go very detailed into it, because we are not so much concerned about the chronology of the transformation of war into from a proxy to a direct confrontation, but that will give us some idea and some sense which will be helpful to understand the political and economic aspects. So how this escalation took place, this we need to understand. And I hope my slides are quite visible. If you want, I can start the slideshow also.
Yes, sir, they're visible. Please go.
Thank you, sir. So as we talk about the Iran-Israel conflict, so in April 24, it initiated with the strikes from the Israel on the Iranian consulate, that is Damascus, which killed two generals. Then it went for the Iran to launch in a retaliation for about 300 drones and missiles. That was the first direct attack on Israel. Then in October 24, it was a ballistic missile being launched from Iran towards Israel. Then comes June 13. That was I would say, the turmoil, or the point of turmoil from where that direct confrontation just got started. So it was June 13 when Israel's attacked on Iran's nuclear facilities. Now it has, from June 13, it has become a warfare. It will become an actual direct attack on each other. So in June 13, it was the direct attack on the Iranian nuclear facilities to demolish them, to destabilish them. Then on June 22, US also joins this conflict and it strikes a multiple Iranian nuclear sites. So now the war has been changed on demolishing the Iranian nuclear facilities. And this started in June 25. Now, the impact of conflict, if we go by, it caused for about 224 deaths in Iran and for about 24 in Israel. So you can just compare how much Israel being damaged and how much Iran being damaged. Most of the Iranian key leaders have been eliminated, like Hossein Salami, as mentioned, and the nuclear facilities damaged were Natanz and Isfahan. So these were the complexes which were called as the nuclear facilities. They have been got a big damage. So comparing the Iran-Israel conflict in a form of direct confrontation, we could just estimate the property loss, the loss of mankind, the loss of economy. Economy we'll discuss later on part when we're coming up with that. But there is a huge loss of property, and comparatively, if we see the case of Iran and Israel, it's more towards Iran rather than Israel. So you can understand that. Now we come to the resistance part. So there are three nations which where the resistance was there. So first of all, it was Lebanon, where the for about 150,000 missiles and rockets were struck into the Israel. How the Iran resisted these attacks? So that's what we're talking about right now. So it was for about 150,000 rockets and missiles which were striking to deep into the Israel for about $700 million Iranian support, which is from the non-state sector. Now, this thing need to be understood. How Lebanon helped Iran. Next was the Gaza. So, despite they having a sectarian differences on the local levels, but they have been supplied by a lot of arms from the Gaza, and they have a strategic alliance towards the hostility which they are facing from Israel. So the issue is that if you go by the deep into the issue of this, I won't be taking more of the time on it, but I have to explain this issue and why Iran and Israel they have started. What was the fact behind the Gaza Strip or the western part of that? So there's a big story. There's a long whole history on it. I won't be going into detail of it, but I want to show you something. So I just wait for one. Give me 10 seconds. I just share that screen also, so as we can understand the things better. In order to make you understand how this Iran-Israel conflict has been in the from the birth of history, how it has emerged. So that's what I want to explain. I'm just taking 10 more seconds just to show you that the emergence of this conflict, why this conflict had started, what what is the background of it. Just that need to be understood. So I just take a minute. Sorry for the delay. I hope. Okay, no issues. Yeah. So I couldn't find that document which I tried to search, but no issues. We'll continue with
No
our
issues, sir. We can
explanation. I,
always come back to that. Yeah.
yes, yes, no issues. So as far as three countries as we have discussed now, I think my screen is visible. Yes. So no issues. We'll discuss that some other day. Not a problem. But I'll try to find out some, because there was some background of it, how it has started and what was the economic aspect of it. No issues. We'll discuss later. So three nations which have helped in to Iran to resist these attacks from the Israel, including Lebanon, Gaza, and Yemen. So, so the key lever for Iran in Arabian Peninsula is Yemen, because Yemen challenges Saudi Arabia for the sake of Iran. So it's been a very good ally of Iran in these case, because to protect Iran from the sides of, or from the geopolitical aspect of Arabian Peninsula. So it challenges Saudi Arabia there, and for the Saudi targets and rich, Iran also provided weapons that have been used against the Saudi Arabia. So there is a strategic alliance among these three nations with Iran, which helped Iran to resist this proxy war also. But now, since there's a direct confrontation, there are some other requirements for Iran to just resist and or to just be resilient towards its economy and how to save itself. Now we come to the geopolitical hotspots. So if we talk about the Syria, now Syria has a different issue right now because of the Iranian influence being undermined, as the regime of Assad being collapsed in December 24, and Israel also seeks some zones in southern Syria. Turkey establishes military bases to combat IS and Kurdish insurgents. So, what does this signifies? That there are some hotspots, and these two hotspots remains the most important ones. That is Syria and the Yemen. Syria being the power vacuum and the competition, and Yemen being the Saudi and Emirati rivalry, because has recognized has been supporting UAE, always been supporting the Southern Transitional Council. They are the separatists, and they could face that these two becomes the geopolitical hotspots there. Well, we are not so concerned about how these geopolitical hotspots will be affecting the economy, but yes, they do have some influence on the political front or the strategical alliances. So probably we could see the Syria and Yemen to play a big role, as Yemen being the Saudi Emirates rivalry, and Syria become the power vacuum for that. So we could have seen that these two hotspots might be a big issues for them. Now we come to the main aspect, that is the strategical choke point, the Strait of Hormuz. Now, from the point of view of the energy economics, or from the point of view of the energy supplies towards the world, so it has a big importance. So it is about 20% of the global oil exports which pass through these this Strait of Hormuz, and it is about 20 million per barrel per day. It supplies for about 33% of the LNGs, and it is the only sea route for the Persian Gulf oil producer to the global market. So it has a huge importance, which been affected due to this Iran-Israel conflict, and which has narrowed down the shipping lanes from 2 miles wide each directions. So it's a very strategic point, which will actually be affecting all over the world, the oil exports and all those things, because India, China, and Japan, they are also having a high value of exports, a high value of imports in form of oil. That is about 80% of this oil is being transfer towards the Asia, specifically China, India, and Japan. So Iran controls the northern shipping lanes through territorial waters, and it threats to close the strait during tension. So this, if this strait being closed, it will actually be affecting for about the 20% of the global oil exports, and this will create a big problem because it will definitely increase the it will definitely disrupt the supply chain because of these waters being under the control of Iranian state. So, and though also we are not having so much alternative, so there are limited alternative routes which could only have the 15% of the bypass capacity. So this is the biggest issue. Why we requires because these things are need to be understood, because when we need to see the transference of oil from one place to another and shipments, so these shipments have a big effect, and these shipping lanes have a big role in transposing the goods from one place to the another. So far as the case of Panama Canal is concerned, the case of Suez Canal is concerned, that is the link between the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. So it plays a big role, as if you can understand that how the Egypt, when the issue of Red Sea and Mediterranean Sea linking by Suez Canal, been the key player and key dominating player in that sense, because it charges the taxes or the or the fees over the movement of goods and services through that lanes. So since Iran is controlling these shipping lanes, so it will actually gonna affect a lot of exports, and specifically the oil export. Now, what are the alternative energy routes? So if in case Iran closes down those routes through which so much amount of oil being exported, so number one, if we talk about the current bypass structure, is Saudi Arabia's east-west pipeline that is 5 million BPD. That BPD means barrels per day. That is the capacity to the Red Sea. Next is the UAE Abu Dhabi's pipeline. It is about for 1.8 million. Then Iran's Gorhe Gas pipeline, which is an alternative export route avoiding strait, which has been affected because of this Iran-Israel conflict. So this combined capacity handles only 15% of what total strait throughout. So we could see that 85% of loss in the movement of oil exports within the from the Middle East towards the world. So this gonna be a big issue for the world economy, and this need to be compensated somehow. And this what led towards the rise in the oil prices, because you will see that there will be expected rise about for about 12% in the oil prices. Free trades will be doubled between Gulf and Japan. Shipping and insurance costs will be spiking globally, and there will be a global inflationary pressures in form of energy price increase. This is similar to what has been the case of inflationary tendencies due to oil crisis, but that was a different case at that moment in 1970s. But right now, the economic impact will be quite significant, as of if we talk about the cost of movement of from crude oil. So this cost increment because of these regulations and the conflicts between Iran and Israel, this will lead to a big issue for most of the Asian and the European economies. Now, the Iran sanctions, how the Iran being sanctioned by many of the nations, and how it has impacted its economy throughout. So we have taken the four different periods: 1979, then 2010 to 15, then 2018, and 2025. So initially, US sanctioned the Iran because of as a consequence towards the Iranian revolution. Then in 2010 to 15, there was multilateral sanctions targeting the nuclear program. Second time, Iran being sanctioned because of the nuclear program which Iran followed for. Next was the 2018, when Trump withdraws from JCPOA and reimposed maximum pressure. That is the Trump withdrawing from any kind of alliance from the Iranian economy or any such thing. At last, 2025, it renewed the sanctions under term targeting the oil exports to zero. So US tried to completely shut off the exports of oil from Iran. Now, how it has impacted the Iran all over the world. So it oil exports fall from 2.5 million to 2 lakh barrels per day within these 2 years from 2018 to 20, for about 100 billion exports being lost as in earnings into since 2018. 20% of middle class fell below poverty line. This is causing because of loss in purchasing power, less income, less number of people will try to have uh, basic human basic necessities, and which has led to the fall of the middle class below the poverty line. And now the 80% of the citizens relying on the government handouts or the government stimulus. So and since the economy on this on domestically is facing a big issue because of these, because Iranian economy was primarily dependent on the exports, and specifically the oil exports. And since these oil exports are falling because of sanction being imposed by US initially and prominently, their economy has always been on a hit. And now the GDP is contracted for about 20%. It was due to the 2012-14 sanctions. So we saw with this sanctions, Iranian economy has always been facing a big challenge in order to sustain. Now with this Israel and Iran conflict, a lot of pressure on Iranian economy will be there. So that's a very difficult time for Iran to sustain and to manage its own domestic as well as the external fronts. Now the effectiveness of these sanctions and these limitations we need to understand. So how much these sanctions been effective, how much they are not, it's a different story. But despite these sanctions, Iran still earned for about $235 billion in form of oil and gas exports. So Iran, although had a lot of loss, a lot of detrimental impact on its exports, but still it has resisted by these sanctions and these limitations. But they they are still facing a issue, but still with these they are able to earn for about $235 billion from oil exports. Now how these how the Iran been able to compensate or resist these sanctions, or how Iran been still making for about a good amount of exports towards the world, towards the world other nations, that is because of its alternative markets, and the alternative markets are primarily China and India. So here comes the important point, that India being the again a strategic move, strategic in giving the route to the Iran, so as its economy could still have an alternative source for its own exports. So China and India are also the primary consumers of the oil exports from the Iran, and that has led to a big, I would say, a big resistance towards the sanctions being made on the oil exports of Iran. And in this, even we compare, the China has a more influence, and China gets more of what Iran supplies towards the Asian economies. So far as Iran tried to alter and move or diversify its exports towards the Asian economies. So China, being the played a pivotal role in getting Iran sourcing its exports towards China. Now we come to the most important aspect, which was being asked in the FDP also, that sir, please discuss about the de-dollarization. So how this is a very important aspect of challenging US dollars dominance right now, and how this petrodollar system evolved, and now how it is being facing a fragility, how dollar dominance is being going on a fragile stage, that need to be understood. So the foundation of petrodollar system was evolved, as you can see that 80% of the global oil transactions were priced in US dollars. So usually whatever transactions being made, so I'm using petrodollar because most of the countries, if they are trading in US dollars. And even then that trade, oil has been the primer commodity which has been traded. And among that primer commodity, oil, because if you can see, the demand for oil is for about less elastic, almost inelastic. So oil plays a biggest role in every economy, and hence it becomes the most important aspect of trade. Specifically, if you talk about the case of Middle East and even other Western nations also, even in the case of Russia also, US only demanded us to put a sanction or just cut off our imports from Russia only in the oil. So oil becomes a very important aspect. So how much oil exports are being transacted through US dollars? So it's about 80%. So that means the US has a dominance, used to have, not has, used to have a dominance in these transactions. Still it is there, but now it is seeking some kind of fragility that we need to understand. So that 80% of the global oil transaction are priced in US dollars. And since it is the most important currency, it is the only currency in which oil could be exported or imported. So oil exporters have invested surplus dollars in the US Treasury securities, because in order to maintain their portfolios, so they have always been investing in the surplus dollars and or the US Treasury securities. Hence, it becomes a currency to trade. Absolutely. And that has always created the demand for US dollars all over the world, in financing also, in promoting also, in trading also. So it is a dependence on the dollar which was highest. And this has given the US a strong strategic geopolitical leverage, because if most of the countries are trading in dollar, that gives dollar a strength, and that gives indirectly a strength to US in influencing the geopolitics, because it has been the strongest currency all over the world. But how this being challenged now, how the countries and most of the developing economies are trying to de-dollarize themselves, how to reduce the dependence of the dollars, how to reduce the dependence on the dollar for trading, for currency exchanges, for financial capitals, for movement of goods and services, and specifically for the movement of oil. So first challenge emerged in the form of China. So China now has developed petro yuan. So from petrodollar system, now they are moving towards petro yuan. So where the crude oil being denominated in yuan. So now they have started trading with some nations who have started accepting yuan for oil exchanges or for oil exports and imports rather than dollar. So this has become a first challenge. Second step was from Russia, by accelerating the de-dollarization, reducing the dependence on the dollar for trading of oil. And this has been most skeptically observed and watched by US, which is not been accepted to US, because it creates a big issue for US dollar's dominance. So dollar dominance being challenged is being secondly made by the Russia. And specifically, if I talk about the case of BRICS group of nations, who now have been trying to develop its own currency that is called BRICS currency, to alter the dollar's dominance in all over the world, as an alternative measure, as a compensating, or as a second currency which could I would say not just counter or counter react, or but it could work as a counterweight towards the dominance of dollar or the strength which dollar creates all over the world. Even now, the Iran and Venezuela have accepted euros, yuan for oil transactions in order to promote this process of de-dollarization. This whole process is called as de-dollarization, and we are seeking that. Earlier, what the countries used to keep global US as a global reserve currency. Why used to keep the global reserve currency in US denomination? Because they have to they are bound to trade in US dollars. So they used to keep this global reserve currency, and this gives a strategic advantage to US all over the world. But now they have started keeping less amount of reserve currency in terms of US dollars, and that share is still declining from 70% to 58%. Even the renewable energy transition, which have reduced the long-term oil demand, because now people are moving from conventional source of energy to the non-conventional source of energies, in order to promote the renewable energy towards green economy, all those things which are going on, it has reduced the oil demand, hence reducing the dependence on the dollar to trade. So this is the aspect where de-dollarization works upon, and it has been a strategic move. It has been a key movement from dependence on dollar to developing the alternative mechanism system. Even the SWIFT, if you could talk about the SWIFT system, from which Russia being kept out due to this geopolitical and strategic movements from US and NATO. So, and in that sense, the Russia has also started to develop its own alternative SWIFT system in order to counterweight the 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 loss it has made, or what it used to have with being in the SWIFT system. So so the thing is that de-dollarization is just reducing the dependence on dollar and developing the alternative mechanisms to trade, so as we are less dependent on dollar and can make our own currencies more strong and our trade less dependent on other currencies move. So that is the thing. I think now I can open the house for the questions. Today, I want more questions from your side, because if I gonna speak again and again, I have more content to discuss. But today, since we are discussed de-dollarization in a very detailed form, so I want a question from your side. Whatever you want to ask, I have a lot more things to discuss also. But now it doesn't make so many differences to us. So now I ask, or I would welcome the questions from your side, because that would be a better thing to understand. If you want to ask something, that would give the actual sense of learning what we are here for 1 hour, or for that 50 minutes. So today I'll give more time to you to ask questions. If not there, then I'll continue. But rather than going from in a unilateral form of discussion, it like a unilateral form of lecture based class, I should now start having some questions from your side, whatever you want to ask, whatever you want to discuss upon this. So that would be a better thing, I hope.
May I add something?
Yes, sir, sure. Please, please.
See, while discussing the economic aspect,
Yes,
Middle East is more concerned about the religion aspect too.
yes, sir.
On the one hand, Iran uh, and Saudi Arabia, Shia Sunni conflicts are there. On
Yes,
the
sir.
other hand, while discussing, you had said about the Lebanon and Yemen.
Yes, sir.
Not only Lebanon, Yemen, but it is also been Iraq. They are the fragile state. In that, this non-state actors, particularly the Houthi, Hezbollah, and many small organizations, they are the proxy of Iran. You should
Yes.
understand. And it is not Iran was one of the greatest civilization in our history. We had been known. It should be
Mm-hmm.
the Persian and many years ago. So it has very historical root also.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, at the 1950s, when United Arab
Mm-hmm.
all came and they fought war against the Israel, even though
Mm-hmm.
they lost the war, and that
Mm-hmm.
time Egypt has played a prominent role in the leadership of this one of the president from Egypt. I
Mm-hmm.
forgot his name, but now it is Iran. No doubt,
Yes.
America wanted to to bring a regime change
Mm-hmm.
in Iran. The regime is not good. It is not for the poor people. For the people,
Mm-hmm.
it is the
Mm-hmm.
elite class they are ruling after
Yes,
the
sir.
Islamic Revolution and these things. But what
Yes.
happened certainly, Ayatollah Ali Khomeini, he
Mm.
turned the war in the side of nationalist, religious
Yes.
nationalist, and that's
Yes.
the reason not only the U.S. but Iran, sorry, Israel stopped the
Yes.
war. You should remember this. This is very significant aspect. Thank you.
Yes. And probably the most important aspect of this Iran-Palestine conflict, specifically, which has been from the Balfour Declaration in 1970s. So the things goes back to that. Actually, I want to discuss with that also. So that
Okay.
Balfour
From
Declaration
where
in
you will start
1970.
history now,
Yeah.
it become a okay. Continue, continue.
You, hello, sir. I cannot hear you. Please, could you repeat?
No, no, continue, sir. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's from my side.
Yeah. So we start with the Balfour Declaration. I can just go by the history also. So like it was like Israel Palestine conflict initially, what we call upon. So in 1970, so a British foreign secretary called Arthur James Balfour, so he came up with the official support for a Jewish national home in Palestine, which lay the seeds of the conflict of Iran and Israel and Palestine. And then in 1948, they come up with a two-state solution, like in 1948, because they cannot contain the Arab and Jewish violence, so they withdrew their forces from Palestine. The British forces being withdrawn, and leaving this responsibility for resolving the this conflict on their own. And now at that moment, the United Nations came up, and they came up with a solution that is called the two-state solution. And from then onwards, that Arab-Israel war being started. Because following this declaration, Israel's independence in 1948, and now Israel being surrounded by the Arab states, which is all the Arab states are there, which has started leading to the war. And at the end of that war, Israel controlled for about 50% more territory than originally envisioned by the UN partition plan. So, what UN two-state solution was being envisioned, it was being uh, neglected. And with this war between Israel and the Arab states, led to the Israel to control for about 50% more territory than that was given by the plan. So, this has led to the initiation of this conflict between Israel and Palestine. So the chronology goes like this. So in 1947, UN presented the partition plan to create some independent Jewish and Arab states in Palestine, which was not accepted by most of the Arab nations because, as per the plan, Jordan controlled the West Bank and Jerusalem's holy sites, and Egypt controlled the Gaza Strip. So this was the partition plan. Now, the Palestine Liberation Organization, that is called PLO, it was founded with the aim of freeing the Palestine from the clutches of Israel and the Jewish domination. And in 93, Israel and the PLO agreed to officially recognize each other and renounce the use of violence under the Oslo Accords. Now we come to the most important aspect, the Israel-Palestine war, how it began from 1967. So it was a 6-day war. Israel forces seized Golan Heights from Syria, West Bank and East Jerusalem from Jordan, and Sinai Peninsula, Gaza Strip from the Egypt. So this initiated in 1967. Then in 1978, the peace framework was broke by US to set the stage for peace between Israel and its neighboring countries. So the issue is with the Palestinian problem is that Israel is surrounded by the Arabian nations, and that is still going on the war, including Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia. Those are the nations. And then in 1987, there was an emergence of a group called Hamas, and it's Egypt's uh, grounded into it. So the tensions occupied the territories of West Bank and Gaza, and that has led to the uprising of the Palestinians. And it grew into a small war between Palestinian militants and the Israeli army. So all of this concerned with the problem with the within the Palestinian nations and the Israel, because they have been surrounded by three or more or four more Arab nations. So right now we are not having so much time to discuss the history a lot, but we will someday or the other day we will discuss in more detailed form what the issue is all about, and I will keep a specific 15, 20 minutes, 30-minute session on this only. Then we will discuss through the graphs also, because I have some documents with me, so through which we can easily understand the concept and we can easily understand the geopolitics around it by understanding the historical evolution of this Israel and the Middle East crisis specifically. So thank you so much. Now, anyone else who want to have any questions, any sort of comment, any sort of query you want to have, please.
one aspect in last 3 to 4 years, Indian government